Welcome back to One-on-One Shadowboxing. Today's shadowboxer with me is Chris Gray. Chris, could you please explain and tell the audience what are the real objections, in bullet points if it's possible, of your residents' association about the Quattro development?
Well, in the very first instance, when we all purchased lots in the development, we were told quite clearly that the intended use of the group housing areas was for over 55s accommodation and group housing, and somewhere in the order of 39 units. Entirely appropriate. There was already that type of development there. Nobody had any issue with that at all.
Well, so everyone was happy when the beginning started. Yes.
So then, to move on, some 3 to 4 years later, there's no communication whatsoever. And at the point where the largest part of the estate is now complete in the number of homes being built and all of the lots have sold, the rules have changed. And there's been no engagement whatsoever and no disclosure as to the intention. So the rules have changed entirely. The affordable housing project and the demand for affordable housing has seen an entirely different direction taken by the Department of Housing. So now we have a development which is 2 stories, 89 units, high density, inappropriate in that location. There are no facilities there to support it. There's only a small group of shops. You've got a further issue in regard to the street that it's being intended to be on. It is already narrow. It already has a high volume of traffic. This is going to make a nightmare out of that situation. There is an issue in that area in regard to exit from the area into Welshborough Road from Wharf Street, and also down the other end, it's sort of Station Road and Gibbs Street. Now it's all restricted, so there's a lot of traffic using that area already.
Yes. And
now we're saying that we're going to tear up both sides of the street and put on-street parking to accommodate the overflow of parking for that development. Entirely inappropriate.
So a major issue is the simple, acceptable development plan went into a nightmare without any consultation, just turned upside down.
There is no way that people would have bought knowing that that was going to be intended. No, and see, they don't have any opportunity to back away from that now. So it's being imposed on them. Now, in a commercial sense, if you change the offer,
yes,
it changes the whole scenario. My view would be is that what needs to proceed is a development that was appropriate to the rules as they were at the time prior to any lots being sold.
Yes.
Either that, either you need to enter into dialogue with the community, and they have completely overridden that opportunity.
Chris, can you tell me something about the benefit of the new regime of planning in WA, which is in force now since 2010? How this new regime of planning process is really a planning and development process helps the developers and the residents?
Well, I think you've just hit the nail on the head. How does it help the developers? So originally the planning process was amended because of the frustration that developers were experiencing in getting planning approvals through council. And there's probably a very strong case to be made for that occurring. What's happened is that the balance, if you like, in the process has gone too far. So to the extent that local government is removed entirely from the process and they do not have a part to play, and there is a further opportunity for the Minister of Planning to intervene and direct council to change local council building requirements, planning requirements to accommodate developments if that is what he sees fit needs to happen. So when you say a benefit to the residents or council, both have been excluded from the process. So there is no way that is a benefit
for the residents or
for the local community.
For the local community.
So in effect, the process is now being dictated to, and my view would be that it's moved too far in the direction of supporting the developers. Way too far.
Way too far. So what's the remaining little position of the community or the council in the process? Because we got the minister at the end of the road, and the minister can say no for anything which is okayed by the council or anyone else. But before that happens, we got a wonderful development assessment panel where the community is represented. So what's wrong with
Well,
that?
it's a token representation in the fact that there are 2 councillors that sit on a committee of 5.
2 councillors of the...
Representing the community.
Yes.
So the best opportunity
And
they have, if they consider a development inappropriate, is to come second.
So who are the others sitting on the panel?
They are people that have professional expertise around planning and development. So right from the beginning, it's excluded the concerns of council. They could say what they like, but they've got 2 votes. So ultimately, they don't have the ability to hold a process or put it in a hold pattern until concerns are addressed. They can be overridden. So it's a clever mechanism, if you like, that's been established by government to get their outcome that they want. When a prominent developer states quite clearly, I think it was in Business News recently, that this period will be seen as a sort of a golden period of development, if you like, and that the councils need to understand that they have no part in the process. I thought that was an appalling comment.
But true.
I don't believe so.
No,
Is that you've got to do, at the end of the day, government exists to work with the community. And it would seem to me, well, that's what we think. And clearly that's not the case. And, you know, one's intentions always show up. And there is plenty of evidence to say that there is a complete disregard for the community. You know, even in the Robinson report, I think it's recommending in regard to local government amalgamations that local community needs to have a voice. Now, again, it's a token. Where is the intention when you've already removed council and residents or communities from the process?
From the decision-making process about their
smoke
life,
and
their
mirrors.
future.
It seems to me that the process, as we understand it right now, and how government is managed, is out of order. And it would seem to me that there would be a lot of people that would share a similar view. They may not all be speaking out, but I would say that we'll look back on this period and say, yet again, we have gone down the same path that we've been down in the past. And, you know, WA Inc. was a classic example. Government got too close to business and compromised the management of the state. So the question has to be asked, are we heading in the same direction in that government is getting too close to the developers without proper consideration for the community and the impact that that's going to have?
I think that's been realized somehow, part of the community, something is really going wrong. And just, for example, there used to be a Western Suburb Alliance, which I think I interviewed some of the members last year. Mm-hmm. And so what's happening with these sort of civil society movements? How do you feel about that?
Well, we're an active part of that process. So our association sought to align with other associations that had knowledge, experience and expertise that we don't have, and to be able to leverage off their experiences. You know, it's a huge learning curve, this whole aspect of dealing with government, dealing with planning and understanding it. In talking to other chairs of associations right across the eastern suburbs, if you like, I am staggered to hear they are all similarly impacted with developments, not necessarily exactly the same and not necessarily with the Department of Housing, but lots of developments where there is no community support and the community are being just overrun by these developments being imposed. And it all comes back to the motivation about affordable housing and that we must accommodate these massive increase in population that we're experiencing. Now, the question I have is why does the rule book get thrown out just because we have heightened demand? It's a planning issue and the process shouldn't be compromised. And it would seem to me that's what's occurring. Mightn't have been the intention, but that is what's occurring.
It's not just the Western suburbs resistance. So the rich people don't want to see developments in their suburb. This is much more than that because, you know, when Western Suburb Alliance started, the government and Columbine had said, oh, this is just rich people resisting useful developments in their leafy suburbs. But as I'm hearing you, it's not at all that. It's much more.
Western Suburbs Alliance were just the first group to get themselves organised, get themselves resourced, and be prepared to speak out against what is occurring. It's the thin end of the wedge. And other communities, including ourselves, are now seeing that if we go down that path, it's the opportunity that we have to ultimately bring this process to accountability and effect the changes that need to be made. Now, you mentioned earlier about is it a war? No, it's not. It's about mediation, and it's about the re-engagement with community so that there is a proper process in place.
So as I'm hearing you, Chris, you guys want to have solution, not debate, not useless time wasting or red tapes. You want to achieve something which is workable and definitely benefiting the community where you live or wherever the people live.
This is a metro-wide issue. It's not a Queen's Park issue. It's not a Nedlands issue. It's not a Western Suburbs issue.
So why don't the government see it that way? Why don't the government or Colin Barnett, the Emperor, see it that way? This is not just a small issue. This is a metro-wide issue. Why couldn't they recognize that?
It would seem to me that they are out of touch. And the recent swing in their favour, if you like, politically, largely a result of federal issues and not local issues, has skewed the playing field somewhat in their favour. Only temporarily, I might add. I think that the balance will come back very, very quickly. But you see, some of the comments that are being made, absolutely inappropriate. John Day commenting in regard to what was happening in Kalamunda and issuing a threat in regard to funding and so on if they proceeded to consult with the community.
He will cut off the funding,
Extraordinary.
the promise.
Extraordinary.
The election promise is gone if they're not shut up. It's extraordinary, yeah, like dictatorship. But I couldn't see what's the benefit for a government, for any government, not the Colon government, for any government of having a dictatorship.
I would agree. I mean, they have lost sight of, and we seem to have a select few people that are determining the outcome to many of these processes. And I don't think that's the role, ultimately, of government.
Of any government.
Where's the proper business case? Where's all of the supporting information and dialogue engagement with the community to say that this is the right way to go? We have a Premier who's saying that he gets on with the job and he gets things done. What we see is a Premier crashing through regardless to get the outcomes that he believes are required, but without the proper process. And the key, Queen Elizabeth's key or whatever would be exactly that sort of process.
He calls that leadership.
I haven't seen anything that remotely resembles leadership. Leadership involves taking other people with you because they're engaged in the process and they're empowered by what you're doing, not because they've been dictated to.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in and talking to us. Thank you for watching us, and please come back next week, same time, same channel.